Talk about football.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 8 of the We Like Football podcast. I am Hayden Yerashunas, joined as always by my buddy with the cold face, Andy Watkins. Andy, how are you, friend?
Well, I screwed up shaving, as you can see, so we had to start from scratch. We don't love it. Our face is a little chilly, as you noted delightfully on your whiteboard behind you there. I see that. And I also appear to have a belly button ring. I was contemplating it. I am going on 30. We have a lot to consider. A crisis inbound. But of course, Dwayne Haskins has joined the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our future franchise quarterback is in the fold, and I am on cloud nine.
Excellent. Yeah, you do have to do something to stay young. So maybe the belly button ring is like your best bet. For sure. Since we're on the screw ups, I'd like to kind of highlight some of my screw ups from the weekend, and then I'd actually like to talk about something from the previous pod before we jump into the games that happened yesterday. So to start my weekend, I had a Mixa 6-pack fall out of my truck when I got home. So my Mixa 6-pack became a 3-pack with glass all over my driveway. So that was sort of how I began my weekend. And then I finished the weekend, I would say this morning, kind of finished the weekend. I woke up, clicked on the wrong link on a Facebook message, and ended up spamming everybody in my Facebook Messenger. So it was an interesting weekend from screw ups from my perspective, man.
Yeah, I guess it's safe to say, much like Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers, you kind of stink.
I do kind of stink, just like Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers, who we're going to be talking about first as well. There's just one other thing that I need to throw in here. I got to roast myself a little bit, which I'll eat crow a lot today. I was wrong a lot last week. However, when I was listening back to our last episode before I sent it out to the masses, I noticed a phrase that kept coming up and coming up and coming up from me. I kept saying fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch. Seems to be fun to watch. Might be fun to watch. You want to take a guess at how many times I said fun to watch?
Was it 72?
It was not 72. No, that would be way higher than where we're at. No, I said fun to watch 14 times in an hour. I went back and listened to it. I counted them 14 times. So every 4 minutes or so, you were getting a fun to watch. So today I'm going to try to go for 15, and that should be fun to watch. You ready to get into some ball, Andy?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. I want to thank everyone once again for tuning in. Let's talk some football. I hope you'll stay with us. It should be fun to watch.
Nice. Oh, God, it's fun when we're both on board. So to start the day yesterday, we had Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers. The Buccaneers against the Packers went into Lambeau Field, came out victorious. The Bucs did 31-26. Kind of had everything that we were looking forward to in this one, buddy. What'd you see at first?
Yeah, this game, in my opinion, a lot of fun to watch. As expected, at least on my end, Tom Brady came out victorious once again, advanced to an unprecedented 10th Super Bowl. Brady, the GOAT, now 10-4 in conference championship games. What more is there to be said about his excellence? Anybody who denies his status as the greatest of all time, I mean, even 3 Super Bowls ago was off their rocker, but now he's entrenched. And especially in this one, to beat Drew Brees and then Aaron Rodgers on the road in consecutive outings to advance. Tampa Bay becomes the first team to play in a Super Bowl at their home stadium, Raymond James Stadium. Just so many takeaways, so many things you could gush about for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Really, just impressed about it.
Yeah, I'll build on Tom Brady. So something that you don't see a lot of is Brady throwing interceptions. The defense did get after him a little bit with the blitz. Tom Brady's stats yesterday, he went 20 of 36, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, and again, 3 interceptions. Very un-Brady-like, but ultimately they were able to kind of do what they needed to do to win. We had talked, and this will be the first time that I eat crow today. And again, first of many. We had talked about the run game last week. I had thought that this might be maybe a more run-heavy game, or at least more than we got. We did not get a ton of production on the ground from this one. The total yards, it was somewhere around 140 yards in total between both teams, but kind of building off the Tom Brady thing. So Leonard Fournette had 12 carries for 55 yards, 1 touchdown. That touchdown was really freaking impressive, man.
Oh, yeah, filthy run. as you said, Brady, had his moments. And he was marvelous in the first half. Second half, not so much. I believe all three of his interceptions came in the second half, and it did kind of enable Green Bay to make a run. I mentioned at the onset here, Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers stink. That may be a little bit of hyperbole, a little bit of exaggeration, but there is a lot of criticism being cast their way, which I kind of want to get into. I think it's interesting. Big picture, Aaron Rodgers now 1-4 in NFC championship games. Matt LaFleur, the second coach to lose conference championship games in his first 2 seasons. To get there in itself is, of course, impressive, but he does join Rex Ryan, some not great company in that regard, not a category you want to be lumped into. But the reason they're garnering so much criticism, of course, is because, in the midst of that second half rally, they appeared to have a chance to tie the game up late. Aaron Rodgers on a 3rd and goal from, I believe, the 8-yard line appeared to have a running lane for what, with a 2-point conversion, could have been the game-tying touchdown. Instead, he forced a pass to Davante Adams that fell incomplete. Then LaFleur, interestingly, opted to kick the field goal. Tampa Bay never got the ball back. I know you were kind of justifying this to me last night during our conversation. How can you justify that?
Trying to justify, I think, would be a better way to put that. Yeah, you mentioned Green Bay never got the ball back after that decision. I'm usually the person who's going to defend coaches' decisions like this, maybe sometimes the questionable calls that don't work out. I might be a little bit more on the side of the coach. I can't really bring myself to justify this one in the spot. So first of all, you're taking the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands that close to the goal line with the game on the line. Like that's a spot where you want Aaron Rodgers to have the football, right? Winners want the ball, if we're quoting like the replacements, right? Also, it's kind of the same outcome. So the field goal was made, but if the field goal was made or the try was unsuccessful on that 4th down, you still need another touchdown, right? You still need another touchdown. So I didn't think that it was worth it to not go for it. You still had some timeouts. You still could have gotten the ball back. Green Bay almost got the ball back, and then that quote unquote questionable pass interference happened, and they ended up Tampa Bay ended up sealing the game there, right? Which I didn't really think that was a super questionable call, but we can kind of focus on the issue at hand here. So yeah, I don't really have an explanation for the Matt LaFleur call at that spot in the game. It's tough for me to justify.
Yeah, I get where you can make the justification. Had they gotten the stop, got the ball back, then a touchdown wins the game. That is I guess, the incentive. But as you said, to take the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands there, that is your best chance to win the game. It's hard to get in goal-to-go situations. You got to take your shots when they're there. For instance, Tampa Bay did so. In the first half, they had the ball right near the end of the half. I believe there was 8 seconds left, and they were at the Green Bay 39. They were initially just going to punt the ball, take their lead. I believe it was 4 points at the time. But instead, after they took some time to weigh their options, they trotted the offense back out. And Tom Brady threw an absolute dime, a bullet, a rainbow on a rope to Scotty Miller for 39 yards to put him up 11 going into the half. We talked about LaFleur and Rodgers kind of turtling there in a critical situation. Granted, this one wasn't end of the game, but it was huge for Tampa Bay to extend their lead before the break and kind of not put the game out of reach, but make it much tougher sledding for Green Bay to get back in.
Yeah, make their lead a little bit more comfortable. Certainly an aggressive play call. Tom Brady is so impressive with how old he is, but how well he's still able to perform. You mentioned how good of a ball that was. And I mean, he makes plays time and time and time again. He had right before the fantastic Chris Godwin catch in the first half, right before that, he had thrown a slant to Chris Godwin that I was positive was going to go through Chris Godwin's chest. That thing was a freaking bullet. Like it bounced off of Chris Godwin's chest because it was thrown so hard. I mean, Tom Brady is just ridiculous. On that play, to kind of go back to the Scotty Miller play, you got to kind of wonder if there was maybe some miscommunication. I thought the way that Kevin King kind of played that, to me, didn't really indicate man-to-man coverage, even though he was man-to-man on Scotty Miller, right? Generally speaking, if a defensive back is playing man-to-man on a receiver, they're going to turn their hips and face the receiver when they run by, right? Kevin King kind of gave Scotty Miller his back. It's called like a zone turn where you're keeping the quarterback kind of in front of your eyes and sinking back into your zone, right? Kevin King just like kept sinking and sinking and sinking. It almost looked like he thought he was going to have some help over the top. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the play call was, but either way, just devastating way to get burned before the end of the half.
Yeah. That's not to take anything away from Brady. It was a good ball, but it wasn't a contested catch by any means. Rough day for Kevin King as a whole. Green Bay secondary largely played well with the exception of him. In the second half, they were kind of the reason Green Bay did have a puncher's chance. Jair Alexander came up with 2 interceptions on Tom Brady. Adrian Amos had another. The problem is Tampa Bay's defense was up to task. Every time there was a miscue, every time they punted the ball, every time they turned the ball over, Tampa Bay's defense was able to hold them to a 3-and-out, get the ball back for them, or at least, hold them to 3. And that's, I think, we could gush about Brady, his accomplishments career-wise and in this season, but I think Tampa Bay's defense, their horses are why they've been so formidable and why they ultimately won this game. Just to talk a little on some key contributors for the Buccaneers defense, Devin White continues to marvel, 15 tackles and a fumble recovery. That fumble recovery was off of Jordan Whitehead, who I mentioned last week. Again, he continues to pop off the screen. I don't remember who it was he hit to force the fumble, but he flew in like a rocket.
I think it was Aaron Jones. I believe it was Aaron Jones who caught the football. Yeah.
And then you mentioned the pass rush getting after Aaron Rodgers, getting him off his spot. Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul combined for 5 sacks in this one. We talked about before starting the pod that Eric Fisher is out for the Super Bowl with a torn Achilles. It'll be interesting to see how KC will compensate for his absence going against an absolute demonic pass rushing team, maybe the best in the league.
Yeah, for sure. That defense, and we talked about it last week, that defense has so many playmakers, dudes that just fly around and find the football. Something that was fun to watch, there it is, for me during this game was watching kind of the chess match between Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator in Tampa Bay, and Matt LaFleur, who calls his own plays. The pass rush got after Aaron Rodgers early, and you could see that they were trying to throw him off his spot. Matt LaFleur did a great job of being like, all right, cool. We're going to run plays that hit the perimeter quickly. We're going to run tosses. We're going to run quick screens, right? Not give you a chance to tee off on our guy. We're going to roll out, move the pocket so that I'm not just having Aaron Rodgers stand back there and have to take a beating all day. So that was part of the game that sort of stood out to me on Green Bay's side of the field. Aaron Rodgers went 33 of 48 for 346 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also had a pick. Staying with Tampa Bay's defense, right? We talked last week. It was one of our start one, sit one, cut ones where the Bucs defense would have at least 1 takeaway. We were right; they had 2. It was this interception by Rodgers, and then of course the fumble that you mentioned before by Aaron Jones. Yeah, that defense is going to be something that is going to be fun to watch against Kansas City's offense next week. I'm so excited for the Super Bowl. What else you got in the Packers-Bucs game?
I was close to wrapping up there. I did see the start one, sit one, cut one from last week. I did want to kudos to myself for being right on the money in all 3 categories. Tom Brady did throw 3 touchdowns. Tampa Bay's defense forced 2 takeaways. And of course, Green Bay ran for 67 yards, not even close to the 120. I believe they averaged slightly above that this year, but Tampa Bay's #1 run defense, as I predicted, shut them down. Aaron Rodgers had his moments, but again, Tom Brady continues to be many quarterbacks' boogeyman. He will try to be again in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes, who advances to his 2nd consecutive Super Bowl after a victory over the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I knew the kudos were going to get in there, and I kind of ate the crow on I started the rushing. I started the Packers rushing 120 yards. Didn't even come close. I kept watching the box score and be like, come on. Nah, never even got off. I was totally wrong on that one. Yeah, so looking at the Chiefs and the Bills, from yesterday. This was another thing that I was wrong about. I had predicted the Bills would win. That I think was more of like an emotional kind of pick. I was so high on the Bills and how well they were playing. It just seemed like their season was magical. So I really wanted it. I just really, really wanted it. And oh God, Kansas City is a good football team. They are so complete. That offense is, I don't know how to slow them down. I texted you this last night. I was like, I don't even have anything of like, oh, maybe if this happened, you just kind of got to be able to run with them. I guess the Chiefs won this game 38-24, sending Patrick Mahomes to the Super Bowl. He is the youngest player. I saw this stat earlier, the youngest player to start, I believe, 2 Super Bowls. But yeah, just remarkable. Dude, we think is going to end up walking into Canton when he retires. And I mentioned last week he's in his 3rd season, quote unquote. I mean, 3rd season as a full-time starter. He was drafted in 2017, so technically this would be his 4th season, but maybe not the 4th season of the godly Patrick Mahomes that we know. The Chiefs are rolling.
Listen, I don't want you to beat yourself up because you can't figure out how to stop Kansas City for 3 years. Yeah, for 3 years now, nobody's been able to stop them. They're a buzzsaw. As you said, your best bet is to try and match them. Buffalo did give it a go, really. Josh Allen was game all day long. He had 287 passing yards, two scores through the air, an interception, and he contributed another 88 on the ground. Buffalo, I think, will be back. But again, Patrick Mahomes, KC, just better on both sides of the ball. Mahomes, 325 yards, 3 scores. As a whole, KC's offense just outdueled Buffalo's. They bettered them in total yards, passing yards, yards per play, first downs gained, third down efficiency, and time of possession. Buffalo really wasn't bad in any category. They had over 360 yards on the total. They had 234 through the air, over 100 on the ground. Like in a lot of categories, Buffalo was not bad. It's just KC was better. And what really did Buffalo in, I thought, was settling for field goals. You can't match KC's 7s with 3s. And that's a credit to Kansas City's defense. We gush over the offense as we should. Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, etc. They're all 3 of those guys are on Hall of Fame trajectories. I don't think it's bold to say that. But on this day, for as good as the offense was, KC's defense, I thought, really gave them the edge. They had 4 sacks, 2 from Frank Clark, L'Jarius Sneed, who seems to pop off screen every time I watch KC, which admittedly isn't all that often, but I don't know too much about him. But every time I watch KC, he seems to be making a play or 2. And then another one, I had to get this in here, another sack from KC of their 4 came from a Teno Passeño. I'll say that.
Say it again, just so we make sure that we're right. Yeah.
Teno Passeño.
Wow.
A lot of fun to say. Great football name, kind of another unknown guy, but lots of contributions from guys you maybe haven't heard of, in addition to some you have heard of. Rashad Fenton also came up with a late interception in the red zone that kind of shut the door on Buffalo's last gasp effort to come back. In all, KC held in the red zone 3 times, and I thought that really made the difference in this one.
I am still just fascinated. I'm still looking at the name Tano Passeño, and his last name starts with a K.
Yes.
The first letter of that last name is a K.
The K
Boy,
is
buddy, what a time to be alive. I totally tuned you out after you said that name, buddy. I got lost in his name. Goodness. Yeah, okay, so going back to the Chiefs and Bills, you're right. The defense is ridiculous. Tyrann Mathieu plays at such a high level. That dude is somebody who's, he's not a shock, right? Everybody kind of knows the Honey Badger and knows what he's about, but that dude flies around, makes plays. He's aggressive as hell. He'll get right up in your face. We mentioned last week, it was one of our hike it or spike it that if Stephon Diggs had 100+ receiving yards, the Bills would win the game, or that would be like a recipe for them to win the game. That defense held Stephon Diggs to just 2 receptions before the final drive of the 3rd quarter. It was absolutely ridiculous. He tacked on 4 more catches after that, but they really did a nice job of keeping Stephon Diggs in check. He ended up finishing the game with 77 yards, so didn't get to that 100 plus receiving yards, and lo and behold, the Bills did not win the football game. You mentioned before Eric Fisher suffered a torn Achilles late in the game. Their tackle, he will not play in Super Bowl 55. Right, we saw the Bucs get after Billy Turner, the backup tackle, in for David Bakhtiari in Green Bay. So it could be a long day for whoever Eric Fisher's backup is. I don't recall who went in for him, but he could be in for a long day on February 7th.
Yeah, Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett are two forces off the edge. Whoever it is that will be coming in for Fisher will have a lot to contend with. But of course, KC's offense, is brilliant in terms of personnel, in terms of scheme. There's so many times what they do just you raise your eyebrows. You go, that's a lot of fun. Like, as a Steelers fan, I go, man, I wish my team did anything that good. You mentioned Stephon Diggs kind of having a lackluster outing by his standards, and I believe, again, I want to kudos myself for being so right all the time. I mentioned that I thought even if Diggs did perform to his usual standard, had his 100+ yards, that I didn't think it would ultimately make a difference for Buffalo, at least in terms of the final score, because KC just has too much offensive potency to match. And Diggs' counterpart, Tyreek Hill, I thought kind of backed that up with 9 catches for 172 yards. Again, every time you looked at the screen, it seemed to be Tyreek Hill running an open field. Cheetah is a freak. Just so much fun to watch. So much fun to watch, buddy. I absolutely love it. This was his 12th time this season in a game hitting at least 20 miles per hour on the field. He is just a ridiculously freakish athlete. Along with him, Travis Kelce had himself a day, right? We said that Travis Kelce would get at least 7 receptions, and that was even if Chad Henne had to start. Thankfully, Patrick Mahomes was able to overcome that turf toe, which apparently was his biggest issue. They kind of left out the concussion before that. But Travis Kelce had 13 receptions, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns, one of them on an underhand shovel pass. Like you mentioned, the offensive creativity. Andy Reid is an absolute baller in that category. Has motions, return motions. If you're a linebacker, I don't know what you look at, what your keys are, because your eyes are always going to lie to you when you watch Andy Reid and his offense. Yeah, like you mentioned, even if Stephon Diggs had 100+ receiving yards, the Chiefs are just too dominant. I don't think that would have made a difference for the Bills. And that, to me, one of the other categories I wanted to touch on here before we wrapped up this game. The chippy play late in the game, in the last 4 minutes or so, it started with a somewhat questionable hit from Alex Okafor on Josh Allen. Allen, of course, kind of humorously threw the ball back in his face, and that led to several retaliatory plays from Buffalo offensive linemen, several that were penalized. What were your thoughts? Were they frustrated that KC was outmatching them?
Yeah, I thought that there was chippy plays sort of throughout the game, especially late. Certainly some frustration on the end of Buffalo. That sack was ridiculous, and I felt like it happened to Josh Allen a few times where he lost so many more yards than he needed to. Like, that dude was kind of circling around, and I credit to him. He was trying to make something happen, especially when you're playing from behind. Like, I get it, right? But yeah, the hit was a little bit questionable. It was a little late. It continued through the whistle, and then Okafor kind of stood over Josh Allen, and at that point, of course the lineman got flagged. As a lineman, nobody touches the quarterback. Nobody's going to stand over the quarterback. That's something you take exception to. You are the enforcer in that situation. Nobody can get away with that. Knew that the flags would kind of come. Little surprised that maybe nobody got ejected. Maybe they didn't take it that far or what have you. But yeah, I think just the perfect storm of Okafor standing over Josh Allen, it being the quarterback, and the frustration of the Bills not being able to do anything against Kansas City, feeling kind of helpless, probably played into it as well.
I think that's ultimately the takeaway here. I thought Buffalo played well, marvelous season. whole lot of fun to watch all the way through, but it's KC was simply too much. Kudos to Buffalo, great year. That frustration, that pride, I think it'll manifest itself into another great season next year. I think they're set up for a lot of future success. I think that kind of wraps up the Bills in terms of We Like Football in 2021. Maybe we'll circle back around like the Bills circle the wagons come draft time, but I think for right now that'll do it.
I almost threw in the circle the wagon thing there. I love it. Yeah, we're on the same page. So we usually do a preview for the next upcoming game, which of course is going to be the Super Bowl. In this case, since we do have a week off next week, usually the Pro Bowl's in there, and they'll do the Madden and the Zoom stuff and whatever they're going to do for the Pro Bowl this year. But since we do have that extra week, we're going to stick with the recap for today and then look forward to the Super Bowl next week. So we won't preview it just yet, but we'll have, a fairly in-depth preview ready to go. Let's keep it sort of in looking through the rearview mirror, so to speak. So we went through both games with all four teams. We have two teams advancing to the Super Bowl now. So let's look back and pick a player to bring back from the Buccaneers and from the Chiefs. This is sort of like our little fun. If you could bring a player back from one of these two franchises, which one would you bring back? Got a couple good names on here. You want to start with the AFC and I'll jump to the NFC?
Yep. Okay, so the way we divvied this up, I'm an AFC cat. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously, so I went with them. Hayden likes the inferior Pennsylvania team, the Philadelphia Eagles, so he'll take the NFC side. I'll lead the way for the Chiefs. I do want to note that this isn't supposed to be like a Mount Rushmore or necessarily the greatest players in Chiefs history, so to speak. There's names like Christian Okoye, Derek Thomas that I didn't really see a ton of, just given my age. I'm not quite 30 yet. I'm not that old. So I'm just going with basically the generation of Kansas City Chiefs that I grew up watching. Who do I think would be most fun to bring back? Who would I enjoy the most? Here's the names I came up with. 3 running backs to start. Larry Johnson, played in 85 career games, over 6,000 rushing yards, 55 scores on the ground. Priest Holmes, kind of the back before LJ came around, he put up over 8,000 yards in his career, which spanned 113 games, and he found the end zone 86 times. Priest Holmes at his peak could really find pay dirt. Another back, I almost omitted him, and then it was kind of wow, what a brain fart. Jamal Charles, I think probably the most fun of those 3 backs to watch. A lot of fun to watch Jamal Charles. He had 7,500 yards in his career, which spanned 119 games. Notably, Jamal Charles averaged over 5 yards per carry. Few backs did that in their career. Jamal Charles was really special, an anomaly. Probably the man most synonymous with the Kansas City Chiefs. You talk about their Mount Rushmore. Maybe all these guys wouldn't be on there. Tony Gonzalez would probably be number 1. Probably the best tight end in NFL history. 270 career games. I'll say that again, 270. Tony Gonzalez had over 1,300 catches, over 1,500 yards, and 111 receiving scores. Just a freak of nature. Another guy, sentimental favorite for me, being a Penn State product, Tamba Hali was a very good edge rusher at his peak. 590 tackles, 89.5 sacks. He forced 32 fumbles in his career. When he and Jared Allen were both coming off the edges in Arrowhead, they were both forces to be reckoned with. Jared Allen's another one I could have considered, but he's not my favorite, so I'll give him a passing mention. Another great player. Lastly, Eric Berry, very recent Kansas City Chief. Of course, he had his battle with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Inspirationally came back, played again. But Eric Berry was never quite the same. It's kind of forgotten how transcendent a talent he was at his peak. So to bring him back and pair with Tyrann Mathieu would be a whole lot of fun. Again,
to watch for sure.
Whole lot of fun to watch, of course. Really, all these guys would be, and it's you can't go wrong. But my pick is Tony Gonzalez, simply because to see the double tight sets with him and Travis Kelce, it would be hilariously unfair. I could picture defensive coordinators up at night sweating now.
Oh boy, and for good reason. Yeah. Oh, buddy. Yeah, Tony Gonzalez. I mean, 270 games is absolutely absurd. Like, good for you, man. Tamba Hali was another person I know we had talked about when we were making these lists that I knew he was going to be on both of our lists. Dude was a freakish athlete in his own right. He was terrifying to look at too, with like the dark visor. Like that dude was scary to line up across from you for sure. And Jamal Charles was somebody who I always loved to watch as well. He had sort of that signature, like when he got even with you, he put his head down. As soon as his head went down, you were toast, dude. That guy was running right by you.
Kind of an underrated back in the grand scheme of things, I think. Jamal Charles was probably my second pick because, again, to pair his speed with a Tyreek Hill, even a Mecole Hardman, oh boy, that'd be a lot to deal with.
Yeah. So on the NFC side, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a lot of defensive players' names on this list, and again, kind of to echo what Andy was saying, we are both fairly young, so we kind of keep it in the perspective of within our lifetimes, kind of when we were able to sort of watch. Maybe some that are even a little bit further back, right? But who are not like so far back that we have no idea, no recollection. So the first one on here, not a defensive guy, Mike Alstott, the bruising running back, played 158 games throughout his career, had over 5,000 rushing yards and 58 touchdowns. On the ground, that dude would run you over. He would run the person behind you over. He would carry the dude behind that dude into the end zone. Like that dude was so much fun to watch. There's times when I'll just kind of watch old like Mike Alstott highlights and just be like, Jesus, imagine trying to tackle this dude. Nobody would want to do it. Warren Sapp is the next name on the list. Dude who made like interior defensive linemen fun to watch for me. Had 198 games throughout his career, 578 tackles, but more fun to watch. Four interceptions throughout his career. I mean, Warren Sapp is a gigantic human being, so anytime he gets to put his hands on the football, you're kind of locked into it. And also had a touchdown in his career. Simeon Rice as well is kind of another defensive name on here. Defensive end, played 174 games, had 483 total tackles, 5 interceptions throughout his career. Derek Brooks is another name on here. The linebacker had 224 games in his career, 1,713 total tackles, 1,300 of them solo tackles, right? Also had 25 interceptions, again, at linebacker. Pretty decent company right here with these defensive players. 2 more on the list. John Lynch had a 224 game career, just like Derek Brooks, had 1,059 tackles and 26 interceptions throughout his career. And then to wrap it up, kind of Rondé Barber as well, the defensive back, played 241 games, had 1,251 total tackles, as well as 47 interceptions and 12 touchdowns on the defensive side of the football. Buddy, I have said it before, I favor the offensive side of the ball. There's only one offensive player on here, but like I said, he is one of the running backs who, in my opinion, was one of the most fun to watch throughout his career. He's awesome. Again, I still go back and watch his highlights. I would bring back Mike Alstott, have that 3-headed monster with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. Just let him get down close to the end zone and just hand the ball to Mike Alstott. Absolutely, buddy.
Yeah, he is a sentimental favorite, and I thought that as well. It'd be a lot
of fun to watch. I'm telling you.
It would be quite a joy to the optics to view Mike Alstott in the same backfield as Leonard Fournette. That's probably a 500-pound freight train coming your way. But I can't, in good faith, go with Mike Alstott when there's simply so many Hall of Fame caliber defenders here. And really, any of them, I think, would fit seamlessly. Derek Brooks with Levante David and Devin White. Oh, buddy. Simeon Rice paired with Shaq Barrett and JPP. I'm not sure how you would line them up, how you'd make it work, but you would make it work. They're all transcendent talents. But I think for me, another guy on the interior, Warren Sapp. You mentioned his 570 career tackles, his 4 picks, but he also had 96 and a half career sacks. You put him in the middle with JPP and Shaq Barrett coming off the edges, not to mention Ndamukong Suh and the linebackers we mentioned. Tampa Bay defense gets even scarier. That's Warren Sapp is ultimately my choice. Again, because He was a fun personality too. I would like just to bring him back in the game. Warren Sapp is a lot of fun. I love when big guys have personality like that. We need more of it.
I am 1000% in agreement with you. Yeah, Warren Sapp was an awesome personality. Dude was funny. Anytime that he was mic'd up, anytime that he had like press conferences, dude was a funny guy. Yeah, you can't go wrong with bringing any of those dudes back, and you insert them in on the talented rosters like we mentioned in the AFC and in the NFC. Oh, buddy, just a nightmare for opposing teams. So let's kind of address some current stuff before we have like a fun start one, sit one, cut one, and then we'll wrap it up here. So there are trade rumors. There's a lot of things that have kind of been going on in the offseason with teams that are not in the playoffs or now heading to the Super Bowl, right? And we're kind of focusing on the games themselves, right? But we do see the stuff that's kind of going on behind the scenes as well. So we can address kind of trade rumors here and some names that have been thrown around out there. So Matt Stafford, Deshaun Watson, J.J. Watt, and Antonio Brown are going to be four folks that we kind of talk about the trade rumors, see what we think about them. So let's start with Matt Stafford, buddy. What do you got?
Supposedly, there's been reports floating around. He and the Lions have mutually agreed to part ways. The Lions will begin seeking a trade. Obviously, their leverage isn't highest, being that Stafford wants out, and teams know that. He is still a productive, arguably franchise quarterback. His statistics do seem to indicate that. So I do think a lot of teams will be interested in him. The Colts, of course, with Phillip Rivers' retirement, and they certainly have the cap space to take on his contract. New England is another one, obviously, quarterback needy. Cam Newton, Jarrett Stidham, neither appears to be the answer. I believe New England also is replete with cap space. They don't seem to have a lot of high-profile, high-priced guys on their books. Pittsburgh Steelers, interesting one you threw in here. There is some merit to it. Vance McDonald just retired. That freed up $5 million in cap. Marquise Pouncey, I don't believe anything is official, but will likely announce his own retirement sooner than later. That could free up some space. And of course, if Ben Roethlisberger ultimately decides to retire, I don't think he will. He has 41 million reasons not to, but if he does, that would again free up a sizable chunk. A couple other names to mention: the San Francisco 49ers might be losing patience with Jimmy Garoppolo. There was the Super Bowl year, but he's largely been banged up, and even when he's played, has been not outstanding, just a fine, average, run-of-the-mill starter in my view. Lastly, the Miami Dolphins, an interesting one to consider because they too do have they have draft assets, they have cap space, but they did just spend a first-round pick on Tua Tagovailoa.
You got all the fun names today, buddy. You got all of them in there.
All right. I already
it doesn't matter. It starts with a K. Yeah. All of these were in kind of the same report. There was a little bit of talk about the Panthers, the Washington football team, and the Denver Broncos, along with those other teams. So Matt Stafford this season, just kind of looking at his stats, had over 4,000 yards, had 26 touchdowns, had 10 interceptions. So, I mean, still playing at a high enough level to where teams are going to kind of go after him, like the former number one overall pick, right? The Colts thing was interesting to me because kind of all offseason, the rumor was that they might have some interest in Carson Wentz, with Frank Reich being the head coach, of course, being Carson Wentz's coordinator in 2017 and 2016. So that was interesting. I feel like Matthew Stafford is a better asset, or somebody that you're going to go after a little bit harder than you would a Carson Wentz. So that probably is going to impact his trade value a little bit. I thought that the Patriots one was a little bit interesting too. Cam Newton had an abysmal year of football. You got to assume that Belichick is not going to give him a super long leash. That dude does not like to lose. So you would think that he's going to be looking for places to supplement his roster throughout, and maybe Matt Stafford can do that. I thought you mentioned with Dwayne Haskins getting signed, you mentioned at the beginning of the show, right? That could be some indication that maybe they're not in the market for a quarterback, even with having Mason Rudolph in that room as well. I don't know. You would know more about this one than I would.
Yeah, I can't see them giving up what it would cost to acquire Stafford. Ultimately, I think they've hitched their wagon to Big Ben. I don't think he's going anywhere. It is interesting to consider, and at 32 from Matt Stafford, I would welcome it. He's probably got 6, 7, 8 years left. You plop him into a talented roster like Pittsburgh's. I like that, but I can't see them doing it. It's just atypical of them.
Yeah, the 49ers you mentioned losing patience with Jimmy Garoppolo. That was a name that I saw in the report. And then the Dolphins talk is interesting too, because of course they just drafted Tua, right? Ryan Fitzmagic might be elsewhere, who knows, right? So it's going to be kind of interesting to keep an eye on Matthew Stafford kind of going throughout the postseason and listening to two new reports that come out. The next one, a report came out that Deshaun Watson's top two choices to go to would be the Jets and the Dolphins. This is a weird one too, because he's still under contract, but he might be able to make the lives of the Houston Texans so miserable that they are going to give in to him. And I don't know. What do you make of the Deshaun Watson thing, man?
I like it is interesting, as you said, especially those teams. Now they both have the draft capital, the assets that they can make a push for Deshaun Watson, but it's interesting that he would prefer to be there than some of the names that have been linked to Matt Stafford. Indy, New England, Pittsburgh, not to say that any of those teams would make a run at him, have the assets to do so, or what have you, but they would seem to be preferable options to especially the Jets. Maybe he wants to just play in the New York spotlight, the market. But Deshaun Watson is marketable as is. You know, we see him in commercials now in Houston. He's a star. I'm sure he's a top 20 jersey seller, if not top 10. I don't know. I believe this was a beat reporter. Let me look it up quick, but I don't put much validity in this one. That doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, it was somebody from the Bleacher Report had tweeted it out, and I saw you're right with the Jets market kind of being big, and I mean Miami is probably a lot of fun to live in. So like I mean I guess I can kind of sort of see where that would come into play. But yeah, did you find the article there?
Yes, Miami Herald reporter Armando Salguero.
Uh,
Now, to me, obviously it's still very early. Like this will probably be months in the making before we ultimately reach a conclusion, or we may never reach one. Deshaun Watson may just suit up in Houston next year, and it'll be swept under the rug that this was ever an issue. But for me, ultimately, I could see Miami making a run at him. The Jets, I'm ruling out right away. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine Deshaun Watson would acquiesce to that. I think he would push to land with a contender ultimately, one of the Miami, even San Fran, Pittsburgh, all the teams we mentioned for Matt Stafford, to me, are more desirable destinations for Deshaun Watson's camp.
Yeah, the only thing that we might be overlooking is the Jets hiring Robert Saleh. He's bringing in Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur's brother from San Francisco. So you wonder if that's going to make that job maybe a little bit better for Deshaun Watson, maybe a little bit more desirable for him. Who knows, right? But staying in Houston, so he's not the only person that seems like either wants out or might be in a different jersey next year. His teammate J.J. Watt is a high-profile DN. He was somebody's name that's kind of been floated out of there as maybe not being in Houston next year.
JJ is another. If the Texans go full-scale rebuild, obviously Deshaun Watson might be the first domino to fall, but you would expect J.J. Watt would be soon to follow. Obviously, high-profile player, excellent player at his peak, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, but Watt has been banged up an awful lot lately. Just looking at his career stats, there's an aberration year in 2018 where he played all 16 games, had 16 sacks. The other 4 years sandwiched around that, from 2016 through 2020, J.J. Watt's been in and out of the lineup. Excluding that 16 sack year, he's got just 10.5 in the other 4 seasons. He hasn't been the caliber of player we know J.J. Watt to be. I don't think he's going to fetch the draft capital he would at his peak. So if a team is interested in taking on J.J. Watt, then the opportunity to do so should be there. I don't think it would take much more than, say, maybe a 4th or even 5th round pick, which it sounds like so little for a player of his caliber, a future Hall of Famer. But You have to remember J.J. Watt's 31. He obviously is locked into an exorbitant salary. It's not the most manageable contract. It's one he may need to restructure if he wants to land with a contender. But I do think there's more weight to these rumors than there are to the Deshaun Watson ones. A 31-year-old defensive end on a huge contract compared to a franchise quarterback. So I could very well see J.J. Watt in a new uniform next year.
I think the same for sure. It's such a shame because JJ Watt, like early in his career, he was somebody that you looked at and you're like, that dude could be the best defensive player ever. Like he kind of like came onto the scene and just blew up. And then his injury report is like a novel, dude. That guy has been banged up forever. It's sad to see, but you're right. He is a high profile player. You probably get him for fairly cheap, or at least relatively cheap. And we're talking about a name like JJ Watt. Mm-hmm. Some places that I thought, and I didn't go into like cap space, draft capital, what have you, just kind of pulled some teams off the top of my head. Dallas, Jacksonville, Seattle. Do any of those make sense? Was I just losing my mind when I threw these in there? And any of them maybe make sense?
I can't imagine they trade him to Jacksonville just because it's within the division. I don't. Granted, I don't think Jacksonville's set up to contend. So that's another reason they may not make that move. So for me, I'm probably ruling them out. The other two NFC teams, both hopeful playoff contenders, both could use a little juice in the pass rush. Those both make sense to me. I could certainly see that. And that's the same thing. I think 31 it's not ancient by NFL standards by any means. J.J. Watt may never be 16, 17, 18 sacks a year guy again, but he could give you 7, 8, 9, 10. That's not egregious by any means. So I do think if the price is right, a contending team should probably try to make a push for him. I think that could be beneficial to both sides. Another star player of yesteryear that we wanted to talk about, there has been some rumors regarding him. Antonio Brown, of course, is still active, but questions as to his status, where he might land next year. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't realize that he was somebody that was going to be moving. You sent that last night, and I was intrigued by it. Certainly a high risk, high reward type of guy. You know what you're getting with Antonio Brown, the athlete. You might not necessarily know what you're getting, or you might not like what you're getting with Antonio Brown, the person and what he is off the field. Had so many issues, kind of that like public blow up, like T.O. style, and then just multiply it by 1,000. Like, yeah, that dude kind of hit his rock bottom. I feel almost like Tom Brady is like Antonio Brown's guardian at this point, and like is kind of keeping him in check. Like, come on, buddy, you come here. We'll go win some Super Bowls. You come here, but you got to stay under my wing. Don't go too far away, because if he does, the trouble that he can get into is not only hurting him, but it's putting your team in a compromised position as well. Just looking around at like some teams that might need receivers, Green Bay notably, right, did not help out Aaron Rodgers this year in the draft. A lot of people were surprised that they took a quarterback with their first pick in the draft this year instead of kind of going and building around Aaron Rodgers. So maybe Green Bay makes sense. But I mean, Aaron Rodgers said yesterday that his future is in question, along with a lot of other folks in Green Bay. Granted, this was during a press conference directly after you lose the penultimate game of the football season. You get knocked out, you're not going to the Super Bowl. So there is some emotion with that. So you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Atlanta, if Julio Jones ends up moving somewhere, maybe that was kind of one that made sense. And then maybe if Chicago and Allen Robinson part ways, maybe Chicago might make a little bit of sense for Antonio Brown as well.
Or why not Pittsburgh? I'd welcome the reunion, depending on the contract, of course. His bitter rival Juju may be out of town. So, if the money were right, and my Steelers fan brethren that are listening here might bash me if they're listening to this point, but to hell with you. AB was a transcendent talent at his peak. I'd welcome him back. In all likelihood, I think he's most likely going to land back in Tampa Bay. We talked about relationship being beneficial on both sides. That one, I think, has been. AB, only came in around the midseason point and really came around towards the end. Just looking at his game log here, his last 3 games, he caught touchdowns in all 3 of them. He had a 93-yard game in week 15 and then a 138-yard outing in week 17. His rapport, his chemistry with Tom Brady only seems to be growing. And I guess maybe I'm doing a lot of growing here because those are 2 guys that I thought I would just hold an eternal disdain for. But God damn it, if they're not a lot of fun to watch, I hope they continue playing together, I think.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you bring that up. We watched Antonio Brown catch a touchdown against his scrotum in 2015. He caught a ball in the corner of the end zone at M&T Bank Stadium against the Ravens. We were there. It was actually like the corner that we were sort of sitting above. We got a pretty good look at it. We saw it on the replay. It was 1,000% a catch that they did not overturn. They said it was incomplete. But yeah, no, it was 1,000% a catch. We saw it. We know. Antonio, we got your back, buddy. Antonio Brown plays football currently in Tampa Bay, Florida. The weather in Tampa Bay, Florida is often warm. You know it goes great on a nice warm day, Andy.
Is it ice cream?
It is a frozen treat. So for to wrap us up here, we have a start one, sit one, cut one that's going to be a little bit of fun. If you are watching it, it is going to be fun to watch. We have the 3 frozen treats on here. We got the Choco Taco. We got the ice cream cookie sandwich. I wanted to make sure that we knew that it was between cookies, not just the like chocolate, like wafer, whatever. I don't even know what you'd call that, but it's not a traditional ice cream sandwich.
Chocolate
and then
cookies and ice cream in the middle. I'm with you.
Correct. Yep. Picking up what I'm putting down. And then the last one, a Carvel ice cream cake. Okay. Now, to keep it fair, it would have to be a slice of Carvel ice cream cake. You can't choose an entire ice cream cake or one of these 2 like one and done type snacks. Okay. So buddy, start one, sit one, cut one.
You know what, that to be honest with you, does throw a wrench in things. But I don't think it's ultimately going to, I'll get there when I get there. Anyway, I'll lead with my cut because it's neither of the latter 2. It's the Choco Taco. I enjoy a Choco Taco, and there's been occasions when it's been a blessed treat. One time I was covering a golf tournament for the newspaper. We go around the first 9, go back to the clubhouse, and there is a cart full of Choco Tacos. Oh, blessed day. You bet your bottom dollar I helped myself to 3 of those, but ultimately it's the least appealing to me. I'm cutting it. Then I'm going to sit, and this might be bold, this might be controversial, but we're here to start controversy. Antonio Brown, come back to Pittsburgh, Carvel ice cream cake. I'm sitting you.
Ooh,
I know,
buddy.
I know, and I fuck with the Carvel ice cream cake. Excuse my language. It slaps. Cookie Puss, I'm into that. However, the ice cream cookie sandwich, more of a niche item, is just, it's top 1. It's elite. It's more often to be found in my freezer, quite simply. Yeah, ice cream cake slaps. It's a rare treat. And you know what? I want to keep it a rare treat. I'm sitting it. I'm starting the ice cream cookie sandwich. It's a day 1 player. It's dependable. It's Peyton Manning. It's Tom Brady. It's there every day in my freezer, and that's where I'm keeping it.
I love the passion. I absolutely love the passion. That was awesome. Wild. Yeah, starting some controversy, putting Carvel ice cream cake on the bench. I'm going to do you one better, and I'm going to cut it. I'm getting rid of the Carvel ice cream cake, buddy.
Oh.
I'm getting rid of it. Now, the way that you painted the Choco Taco is the reason that one is on my team. I'm going to kind of get to the start and the sit because I'm not totally sure about it just yet, but I'm hoping to find it along the way as I go through here. But it's just a fantastic treat. The idea of the taco and then the meat or the filling being the ice cream, you get that chocolate sauce. I'm starting a Choco Taco. I've talked myself into it. I am starting the Choco Taco. And I'm not a big like sweets guy, but like I mentioned, a hot day, if you can have one of these things, for me, if I have my choice, I'm taking the Choco Taco. And then, like you said, the ice cream cookie sandwich, and it has to be the cookie one. It has to be the chocolate chip cookie sandwiches. That's one of my favorites as well. I was torn between that and the Choco Taco, but I think that the Choco Taco is just so much more fun. I am sorry, Carvel ice cream cake. I am sorry to our listeners who are undoubtedly throwing things in their homes right now or, swearing in their cars. I apologize for the controversy, but that's what we are here for.
And another thing, Bo Jackson's overrated. We like football.
We like football.